This is the Engage Your Destiny podcast, where your destiny is our mission. Serving our active military, veterans, and families. Welcome to the show. Hey guys, founder and CEO of Engage Your Destiny, Ben Peterson here. I'm so excited and blessed to be with you for another week as we are telling veteran stories and the impact that Jesus has had on veterans all around the country and around the world. And I am so excited for this episode as one of my brothers and ministry partners who is leading and engaging at Fort Wainwright up in Fairbanks, Alaska, is joining us. Craig Penley, welcome to the show.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Dude, I'm so glad you're with us. So I want to read a quick bio here. So you're Craig Penley. You're 36 years old. You've been married for 9 years. You served in the Army for 16 years. You were a captain when you got out. You are a graduate of Ranger School in the Q course for Special Forces. You served in the SF teams for 4 years. And you did two tours to Afghanistan and one to Ukraine.
That's correct.
You also competed in the Ranger competition for the British Special Forces?
Camera Patrol, the British version of like Best Ranger competition.
That's amazing. How'd you do?
We won.
Oh, okay, yeah. We won. Got it. So Craig, I love your story and I'm so excited to share it today. You know, you grew up in a family of achievers. Mm. You grew up in a family of, I feel loved when I do. Can you speak to that? What was that experience like?
Yeah, it's a lot what we talk about with soldiers and my perspective on it and, the being raised part and where I got who I am today and like what's inside of me. And a lot of that just came with, the way I was raised and the family I was raised in. Mom and dad, both awesome parents. Mom she worked a lot. It's a lot of where I get my work.
Yeah.
And the way I do my work and the way I drive after things. And then having two brothers who are also extremely high achievers.
You're the youngest.
I'm the youngest. So I have a twin brother and an older brother. Okay. Older brother's super stud, still in the Navy Special Operations community. Wow. Twin brother's brilliant. He was a naval aviator, went to Naval Academy, was studying like physics, can talk, the smartest stuff in the world that I could never understand. Yeah. And I'm the little guy. I was a young guy. My twin brother, my older brother, looked exactly like. He was taller than me, both had curly hair. Chicks chasing him down the hallways in high school.
He got all the good genes.
They had it easy, I would say. And I don't want to say a lot, but like, they're both smart, extremely athletic, very attractive men. And I was the little guy, the runt. And I had a feeling as a young man that I had to do a lot just to get on the same playing field as them. Yeah. And more so to get the attention from my parents, to get the love I was seeking. I had to outperform.
In what ways? In high school?
And that's everything. Like, from an early age, having to learn, if I wanted mom to notice me over my brothers, I need to throw the game-winning touchdown. Yeah. I need to win the rest of the match. Do all these great things to get that feeling of love. Not saying that they didn't want to pour it out. It's just I was competing with my brothers. Yeah. And hit your question, I feel like that's where I got a lot of my drive to go, be, accomplish. Yeah. And it transitioned for me as a childhood, like just getting mom and dad's love to, I want to be a Special Forces operator.
Wow.
I kept chasing to feel that in me throughout my life.
And you joined the Army at what age?
18.
Why?
Older brother went to the Naval Academy. He was the first one in our family to join the military. So it inspired my twin brother and I. Yeah. Twin brother went to the Naval Academy also. And I was like, hey man, I want to be a little bit different. And I had a great mentor in high school. We had JRTC. He was an awesome stud Ranger guy. And I looked up to him. Yeah. And kind of drew me in the path of joining the Army, starting a new path in our family to have an Army guy versus the two Navy guys.
Wow. I'm gonna pave my own way to prove this path. What was your drive? I mean, because this is probably 3 or 4 years after 9/11?
2006. So
2006.
5 years.
Yeah. So you remember 9/11. I mean, did that play into any of your decision of wanting to go fight?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially as men, I think, as children, we have this vision of going and fighting and doing something more and seeking that. 9/11, I mean, still to this day, I'm sure you're the same way. Like, you still get cold chills when you think about that
Yeah.
And the pride it brings you to wear the uniform and to do the hard things for your nation, because all the people that lost their lives that day, the attacks that happened in our country. Like, yeah, I want to stand up and fight against that.
Yeah.
And I think especially our generation of guys that were in the Army, the Navy, and Air Force, Marines, whatever, you know, you could throw that on TV today and like, hey, give me my uniform back, let's go.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Tell me, what role did faith play in an 18-year-old Craig who became an 11 Bravo?
Yeah. Faith back then, I mean, growing up in the church, I mean, I came to know Jesus at an early age, but especially the high school years, you know, fall away from that. I was more wanting to chase women, go partying, stuff like that. So I fell away from my faith for a while. So join the Army, again, going back to the childhood stuff, like, no, it's just me seeking the next challenge.
Yeah.
And faith didn't have a whole lot in it. I had in the back of my mind, I know God's there. I know he's going to put me in places, but it wasn't a leading factor at that time in my life.
Yeah. What was the first challenge? So you joined,
Yep.
you went to Fort Benning, I assume?
No, actually, first job I was 13 Bravo, cannon crew member. So I went to Fort Sill.
You went to Sill.
Yep.
What was the first achievement of your long line of things you were chasing that you're like, dude, I'm becoming something?
I think it was, you know, I remember before joining the military, you go to the airport, you see the guy, the private walking through the airport in his uniform.
Yeah.
And seeing that and me being that guy on the back end after basic training at AIT and taking that flight home and wearing that uniform, it's like, wow, I did that.
Yeah.
You know, and I did it on my own, right? Away from mom and dad, out of the house, growing into a man, an individual.
Yeah.
That was definitely the first achievement, right?
Wow.
Stepping out of high school and just joining the military and being on your own.
Yeah. So what came next? So you go through AIT, you're in artillery, and then what was the next thing to chase?
Next thing to chase, my National Guard unit was deploying to Iraq during that period of time.
Yeah.
And, you know, 18, 19 years old, and I really wanted to deploy, chase the combat.
Yeah.
And luckily, my mom called that mentor I was talking about, and I was like, can you please talk some sense into Craig?
Yeah.
He talked some sense into me because I was chasing that combat, and he just advised me and walked me through it to continue to pass that. Combat's combat, right? He's like, man, combat's not going away. He encouraged me. He went to Appalachian State University, and he encouraged me to seek out their ROTC program, college. So the next step, with his guidance, was college.
Yeah.
And me working towards a commission in
Green
the
to
Army.
gold.
This was ROTC.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Wow. So you go through ROTC, and then you would have gone to Bullock, right? To become an officer?
Correct. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
What was Bullock like?
Bullock was awesome.
Yeah.
So that's when I commissioned to infantry. Bullock's great. It's like pre-ranger school when you're an infantry officer.
Yeah.
You just do a lot of patrolling. You can do op orders with your eyes closed. Super fun. And my most memorable and favorite parts of that was like the community you get involved with. I mean, guys I went to Bullock with, the studs, you know, your close group of friends. Guess what? The same guys I'm going to ranger school with. Fast forward 6-7 years, same guys I'm going to Q course with.
Wow.
And it's just when you find those high operating people, the people that, you know, you will associate with in those groups when you go through these hard trainings and stuff, it's the same guys you keep running into time and time and time again.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, Bullock, for those who don't know, is basic officer leadership course. What would you say at that? I mean, because Bullock is hard.
Yes.
What would you say is the best thing, or what was the achieving moment of Bullock, and maybe not graduating, but like in the actual class?
Achieving moment, I think just honing in a profession, honing in, and that's across, you know, if it's infantry, aviation, artillery. As an officer, it's really diving into like, what does it mean to be an infantry officer? Do you get all the answers and know how to be a lieutenant, a platoon leader when you come out there? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But like those foundational building blocks to start learning, right? It gives you the foundation to step up and say, hey, yes, I might not know what it means to be a platoon leader, but at least I have some understanding. And then again, leaning on the NCOs when you get somewhere as an officer, like, hey, cool, yeah, I went to Bullock, I went to Ranger School, help me continue to learn to be a leader.
Yeah. What was the intake for Ranger School like?
Intake for Ranger School, I mean, especially on the infantry officer side of the house, I mean, you leave IBOLC and you go straight to Ranger School.
Wow.
It's like across the street, and it's almost like another day.
Yep.
You got to shave your hair,
Yep.
but you're doing the same stuff. That's the good thing about infantry basic officer courses, because it's just a pre-Ranger school. So getting to Ranger School, it's like, I've already done the patrols.
You're
I've
prepped
already
and
done
ready.
everything. The biggest thing, like I was fighting, and probably some of my peers was fighting, was just the self-doubt piece. Like,
What did that
this
look
is
like for you?
Ranger School. The self-doubt piece, and I was just talking to a friend about this not too long ago, it's a mentality of, man, I don't want to fail because I won't get my tab. And it's a transition mentality of, I don't want to fail because I will not achieve my mission. A different perspective on it. So going in Ranger School, everybody's terrified. Everybody wants to pass. And that's terrifying. It's you're dealing with yourself. You don't know your capabilities. You haven't tested yourself yet. And that's the good thing about Ranger School. You have an opportunity to test yourself. Not so much that I can go ruck a ton or pass a PT test or do anything, but how am I going to do with no sleep, no food, all the self-doubt,
Yeah.
and then step up and lead peers? Because there's no rank there.
How was that for you? The first time that, I mean, you haven't slept. You've got one MRE a day, right?
2, but use like 2 hours apart.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hey, we're going to go sleep. It's midnight. Here's an MRE. We're waking up at 2 o'clock. Here's your next MRE.
Yeah. Yeah, jeez. So, and you're feeling the weakness of hunger, and you're feeling the lack of sleep, and you're fuzzy. I mean, what was that like for you and your body?
It made me realize how amazing God created human body. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest thing I've learned through Ranger School, is that the human body is so much more powerful than I ever imagined.
Wow.
And now, as an adult, many years past Ranger School, it's like, I know I don't need sleep. I know I don't need food to continue to do things.
Wow.
And unfortunately, like, you have to experience that to really fully grasp
know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next hurdle, the next thing is a 2-year Q course.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be a Special Forces officer.
Yep.
One of the best in the world. Take me through I mean, you start at 9, go from 9 to 5? I mean, like, what is the essence of the Q course?
Q course starts with selection. We just had a soldier get picked up for selection in Fort Wainwright, and it's fun getting to mentor and be on the other side of that.
So what's the selection process like?
Selection process, you get to go be an athlete. You go perform.
Yeah.
First weeks, hey, just go be an athlete. Can you do these gates, is what we call them, ruck, marching, running, PT test.
Yeah.
Goes into land navigation.
And are they mean to you? Are they beating? Okay.
No.
It's just, we're athletes and we're testing you.
It is purely test to see who you are as a team player. Can you move the weight? Can you put on the rucksack? Can you run? Right? There's a level of physical fitness there. But the most impressive part about selection is they're looking so much deeper than, can you just run and ruck?
Yeah.
They're looking at, can you be a part of a team? Can you be a part of a team when your muscles are depleted? You're tired, you're stressed out.
And you don't want to keep
And a
going.
lot of it's self-induced stress. They don't need to scream at you to bring on that self-induced stress. The most self-induced stress I ever had was probably one of the chillest schools I went to, which was free fall school. And I was stressed out of my mind. No one's screaming at you, no one's doing nothing.
And what's free fall school?
Free fall, jumping out, hey-ho stuff.
Halo jump.
Yep.
And that's where you're at how many feet elevation?
14,000 feet.
14,000 feet.
Yep.
You've got oxygen
Yep.
and you're halo jumping.
Yep. That's all self-induced stress.
Yeah.
Which as human beings, like, probably our greatest enemy outside of the enemy itself, the devil, and he'll play in it, is self-doubt. The things up here that you're combating. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not smart enough. And, putting that behind you and just being you.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned through selection. Hey, if they don't pick me up, okay. I got to a point where I was comfortable, like, I will give them my all. And if they don't want it, it's fine.
It's fine.
Right?
So you got picked up
Got picked up.
and now you join the Q course.
Yes, Q course.
And are we dealing with more stress from the instructors, or is it more self-induced?
All above.
Okay.
Stress from instructors, self-induced. Q course is broken up in a bunch of different pieces. We have individual training, like those officers. We have our own training. The 18 Charlies have their own training. The 18 Delta. Everybody has their own training.
Right.
But you go in and out of phases. So, and if I can remember correctly, I think we did MOS training first. So MOS training, the job training me as an 18 Alpha and officer. All us officers got pulled aside and we worked our officer piece.
So you're a leader. You're not a weapons tech. You're not medical.
Correct.
I'm an officer.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we do our individual training. We come back together for small unit tactics, which is like Ranger School 2.0. Okay. Super fun. They do a really good job with it. I actually really, really enjoyed that because it's Ranger School 2.0, but I think they have a different focus on it where it's more training instead of adding the stress. The stress is there, but we will do an ambush, just rinse and repeat until you can do it with your eyes closed.
Wow.
So there's a lot of little pieces throughout the Q course that all comes together in the culminating event at the end, which is Rob and Sage. Where now, hey, I went off and did my officer training. My 18 Delta, the medic, he went off and did his medical training. The Bravo went off and did his weapons training.
Got it.
And it all culminates at the end with all this training we've got over, a year and a half, 2 year process, and we come together as a team. And I could be way off now. I know they changed the curriculum.
Sure.
But when I went through it, it was awesome. Like you come together and you see these guys throughout the year and a half. You're doing different events with them, SEER school, whatever. And then you're like, all right, let's do this. Like you guys have been trained. Like let's give you a fake scenario. Now I won't go too much into it. Let's give you a scenario and let's see how you operate as a wannabe Special Forces guy. And
pass fail.
Yep. And it's fun.
Wow.
It was awesome.
When was the first time you went into a combat zone?
When I was with the 82nd Airborne, infantry officer.
Okay. Yep. And that was in Afghanistan?
Afghanistan.
What was your mission there?
We were doing Guardian Angel missions.
Okay.
So
could you describe that?
Yeah, Guardian Angel is basically we were security details for people going out into Afghan communities, either going and working with the police.
Yep.
The Afghan army, going to the mayor's office. If there's someone, a general's coming down to talk to somebody, we would provide the security perimeter for them to do those meetings or to do the training that they're going to do.
Yeah. Was your deployment with the 82nd Airborne, was that the first time you ever got shot at?
Yeah. And that wasn't like intensive combat type stuff. It was
not like what came later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your second tour is after you have become an infantry officer in the Special Forces.
Yep. That was with 10th Special Forces Group.
10th Special Forces Group.
10th Special Forces.
And you went back to Afghanistan.
Correct.
What was the mission that time?
That one was basically, came down to inflict as much pain on the Taliban as possible to force them to the negotiation table. This is, leading
on
up
the Taliban.
On the Taliban. We wanted them to feel the pressure, so to facilitate the negotiations to withdraw from Afghanistan. So every boy's dream, like, hey, go inflict pain.
And what does pain look like?
Increased missions. So my detachment, we did nighttime infiltration raids. We, linked up with our partner force there, very capable Afghanistan Special Operations Unit. And we would do just nighttime raids, hop on a helicopter, go chase down bad guys, and either capture or kill them, depending on the mission.
What was it like the first time you had to take another life?
It's compartmentalized in my brain, I guess.
Yeah.
I think during the moment, doing the job.
This is what it takes.
Yeah. And more so of, I don't know, not a whole lot. It was not reactionary.
Yeah.
And
was it someone shooting at you?
Yeah, we were, went into an objective and hit a bunch of IEDs, and thank God none of our guys got hurt. One of our friends got injured, which kicked off a more intensive firefight.
Yeah.
For me, in that moment, in my role as the officer on the ground, I was the guy talking up to higher and talking to my guys in the team. So I just 2 headsets on.
Yeah.
Got my Afghan counterpart pulling on my sleeve. Hey, Captain Craig, like, all this. I got the JTAC here. 10,000 things going on. So I don't know if I've processed at least that first interaction. This is my first time also like, oh man, this is happening.
Yeah.
And it's not like I thought it would be in the movies, right?
Totally.
It was more of, hey, I'm doing a job, and focus on the job, focus on the communication, focus on what's going on. Make sure everybody's in the right place, make sure all right guys are okay. But yeah, just kicked off a quite large firefight, and just finding a way through it. My job there was indirect fires, working my JTAC, isolate the problems, take out the problems.
And calling in fire.
Calling fires, indirect, or we had AC-130 overhead, and like, okay, just work through the problem set.
Yep.
Work through the problem set.
Do you remember the first time you got close enough to see someone who hated you and wanted to kill you and look him in the eye?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
And that wasn't through a firefight. We went to an objective. It was a very quiet night. My team sergeant took our maneuver element down into an objective, and without getting too much detail, there's an unfortunate civilian casualty on that. A stray round struck a kid in the face. So my job, called to hire, hey, we have this going on. Of course, the Taliban, they're also very good at spinning the media.
Yep. So
the objective there is, okay, let's get our story out first. Because unfortunately in warfare, accidents happen.
Yeah.
So we called up to hire, and we were starting to pull off the objective. We hit our objective needs, captured a couple potential Taliban, and we're pulling off, and hire's like, hey, we need pictures of that kid.
Jeez.
So I turned to my team sergeant, and I'm like, hey, man, gotta go back in. We need these pictures. And a lot of us are getting really emotional at this point. I definitely was, and we're hiding, of course, but he goes back in, he gets the pictures, everything, and one of the individuals we ended up capturing that night as suspected Taliban was the father of this kid that died. And pulling off objective, and I felt in me, this guy's right in front of me now. I felt like I should give my condolences. Hey man, like I'm sorry for your loss. And that was the first time I seen pure evil in eyes. And I don't think it was about his son dying, but just purely wanting me to die. And that sent shivers to my spine.
Yeah.
Outside of the circumstances of this kid. And you know what he told us, through our interpreters was, it's fine, I have another one. But just that stare of like, I want to just rip your face off. I said, oh, yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your faith throughout this time?
Growing. I think I started to come back to my faith.
You're seeing the need.
My first trip to Afghanistan, and
Yeah.
I was gracious to have a really, really good mentor that I bunked with.
Yeah.
Gave me the Bible I keep on my nightstand today. That continued to challenge me. And did it waver? Yes.
Yeah.
Especially because I kept seeking self. I keep seeking, like we're talking about, that challenge.
That achievement, that challenge, that identity.
Yeah. And of course, when I was on that Afghanistan tour with my ODA, God was there because I was terrified. It was a lot of times, we would go on mission, 3 days later, we're going on another one. And we did lose quite a few Green Berets in that trip. So
How many?
3, 4.
Yeah. That's so hard.
Yep. And the tough part was, hey, it's tonight the night, right? So, I was vulnerable in seeking God for that comfort. And a lot of prayers just like, God, just let us get to the objective, right? Let the airplane or the helicopter not get shot out of the air. Let our guys be safe.
Through my experience in combat, when people died, it was this shock that it comes out of nowhere, right? And did you find that when someone would get killed, that it almost, you couldn't even seen it coming?
Yeah.
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 You've talked about before this shift from, yes, we're doing the mission, but almost this more focus on killing.
Yeah.
And, Bible makes it very clear that, there's murder, right?
Yep.
And then there's, I have to defend my family, or I'm, doing what needs to be done in combat, right?
Yeah.
And you've used the phrase very specifically, killing, where we are on a mission to kill.
Yeah.
And what do you think shifted that focus and identity of the group?
It should be two distinctive things in our mind.
Yeah.
Killing versus murdering.
Yeah.
And I know me growing up, and probably mine and your generation, we think of combat as this glorious thing that we're seeking, we're chasing.
Yeah.
It's a drive.
Oh, yeah.
Spartan boys want to go play with their swords to eventually go to combat one day. Same with us.
Yeah.
As young men, we Like I chase that.
Yeah.
I think the unfortunate part is, especially if we don't have the correct mindset, if we have a worldly mindset and everything's telling us, watching Arnold Schwarzenegger and Chuck Norris on TV and Bruce Willis.
Just laying people out.
And that is the norm. That becomes the norm in our minds. And then we're giving, and the taking of a human life is a very serious thing.
Yeah.
It is not something that should be taken lightly.
Yeah.
In our culture and everything around us, video games we play makes a light matter. And not realizing that another human being on the other side of that rifle, whatever it is, on the other side of that bomb, like that is a human being God put on this world.
That's a life.
And unfortunately, I think with our culture, when we go to combat, when we're experiencing this through our whole lives, and we finally get there, there's a high to it. It's a challenge. It is live or die. There's adrenaline dumps. There's things it does to your body. Without the proper mindset towards it, you'll chase that. And there's plenty of people out there that get a thrill after that chase, the kill. And biblically speaking, like, Jesus calls us to be peacemakers.
Yeah.
And we can be soldiers and peacemakers at the same time. Now, I said it, God, how can I be a Christian and deploying to do this if I am killing, murdering, in the way I had to deal with in my own mind? Because I had to be very black and white with it.
Yeah.
I had to say, when it comes down to if it's either you or me, like, I'm not chasing you to kill you, shoot you in the back maliciously. I'm killing you because I have to, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. Give me any opportunity in the world to not do it, please. Because you're a creation of God.
I feel like I just got a movie scene of you saying that to me and me being like, oh God, please don't do it. Yeah, man. Wow. So intense. You come home from that deployment.
Yeah.
And then you go to Ukraine.
Yeah.
And in Ukraine, you guys are gods.
Yeah.
You guys have the keys to the city. And what was the mission in Ukraine, and why were you just so loved there?
Ukraine is a beautiful, awesome place. Our mission there, and of course, is before the war in Ukraine kicked off. None of us saw it. Our job was to continue to help the Ukrainian special operations community that we're working with just refine their skills.
Yeah.
Through a partnership with them and working on helping them, right? Tactics, planning, whatever it's going to be. Especially in the special operations community, we do a lot of things called JSETs and joint, can't remember what that's called.
Yeah.
But basically going forward and we partner up with partner forces and work on training us. We get training out of it.
Yeah.
And then also, assisting them in whatever needs they see.
So you're supporting the Ukrainian SF teams. You're doing training with them. You're training up teams. That, you've really helped me understand, the power of building teams.
Yeah.
And even Afghanistan, that was a big part of your mission. We need to go build teams so that we can leave.
Yep.
Can you speak to? I want to go back for a second to. You would send one message a week. Talk about that and how succinct it had to be.
Yeah, and that's like the 12 Strong movie.
Yeah.
This is like where it kind of plays out in when I was going through the Q course for the 18 Alpha section of the officer section of it. My instructor hounded that into us.
Yeah.
Is saying basically as a Special Forces operational detachment, you can deploy and be the only American entity in that country. Think back to beginning of Afghanistan. An ODA goes in.
Yeah.
They are the sole representation of America in that country at that point in
Yeah.
time. And a lot of times when you're on these deployments or you're doing that, you can't just pick up a cell phone, call back to the boss, hey man, this is going on, blah, blah, blah.
Chat it up.
You might have one opportunity to throw satellite communications up to send one message. That has to be very short because we're over satellite communications. You can't sit there and have a book that you're sending up. So very short and succinct, where that communication, every word matters.
Yeah.
And if every word matters, you better make sure you're saying not saying the right stuff for people to be happy, but your message needs to be clear.
Yeah.
The Afghanistan or the team that went to Afghanistan, the first message they sent up saying, hey, we linked up with our partner forces and all that, that was read by the Secretary of Defense. That's going to White House level.
Yeah.
From a guy like me.
On the ground.
Right? That's, woe is me, who am I?
Yeah.
Right? But you never know, especially in the special operations community, if that weight's going to fall on your shoulders or not.
Well, we talk about in ministry and in business building teams. Well, how can you, and I want to ask you this question, what does a team need to have in order to garner the level of trust to go in with guns and bullets and bombs and all those things and to represent America, and they only need to send one message a week? What does that team have to have?
So much. There's so many facets to it too, like trust.
Yeah.
I mean, trust, the training, the experience, everything.
Process. Systems.
Everything. Because in a lot of times it's like not every team's gonna get that mission. Not every team's the same. Say I'm in a company and I have 5 ODA sister teams beside me.
What's ODA?
Operational Attachment Alpha, Special Forces team.
Yeah.
There might be 5 other teams there, and the boss doesn't come down. I have this one mission. Say we're back in that day and we're going to Afghanistan. There's gonna be one team that gets it. He's gonna be assessing like what team has that stuff.
Wow.
Which team can I trust to send me that one message? What team can I trust to get the mission done? And I don't have to worry about them going off the deep end or doing something crazy or whatever. But yeah, everything. Like, and that comes probably more so than just the team dynamics, how they work together, the personalities, the qualities they bring apart to the team as human beings and how that meshes together.
So back to Ukraine. You're there, and why did they worship you guys? I mean, why was there this these are the Americans?
Yeah, and I think worship might be a strong word with it, but it's the especially in that the influence we as America bring just period when we go places. People look at us differently.
Yep.
When you're in the special operations community and you might be that one team in the area, like you are bringing a lot of weight with you.
Yeah.
When we walk in with that flag on our shoulder like that, we could be the only person representing America in that country.
Yeah.
And if the president calls down and say, I want this message to go to this one person and it has to funnel through me, then I'm carrying that weight of it, right? So when we go to locations like that, like we bring a lot of influence. We bring the money. We bring the power. In Afghanistan, like where I went, I can have bombs dropped on anywhere with a phone call, right? That's a lot of power. That's a lot of influence.
Power. And the money you could use to negotiate and fund things.
Yep. And people around the world know that, like, at least the partners I worked with, like, hey, like, if you want to go fight, this is our Taliban partners, like, they didn't want to go on mission without us because they know we brought the planes, we brought the heat. The same thing with financial stuff too. Like, it's like any other business ordeal. Like, you want to be friends with the guy that can bring influence or power or money or anything into the equation. So that carries weight. So when we're in Ukraine, I mean, I can walk in and say, hey, we're doing this, right? To whoever it is, because we bring that influence.
Yeah.
Right?
So to look at the journey of your story, and I'm going to be, the varsity quarterback, and then I'm going to be in the Army, and I'm going to walk through that airport, and then I'm going to graduate, Ranger School, Q course. I am on the ground in Afghanistan leading a Special Forces team. I am now in Ukraine, and people look at me, and I have a certain level of power. I mean, in our world and what guys like you and I value, that is the quintessential of success. But you still felt empty.
Yeah.
And tell me a moment when you just said, or you just felt, dude, this isn't enough.
Yeah.
And now you're realizing it.
Yeah. And a lot of it, I mean, for me, it hit when I was in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Again, I was seeking that challenge. Yeah, get my Ranger tab, get my Green Beret, lead men in combat, be an influence in a part of the world and speaking a language I never thought I'd ever do as a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And trying to tack on these things, add things to the uniform to hopefully fill something in me, whatever I was chasing, that gap I had. And it hit in Ukraine. And to back that story up just a hair, 6 months before leaving for Ukraine, my wife deploys to Afghanistan. Just helping to shut down Afghanistan and talking about, the way I grew up and having to perform to get that love and to fill those gaps in my life. Like, I get a lot of that love from my wife.
Yeah.
And her being gone for 6 months before I go to a country with some of the most beautiful women in the world.
Yeah.
and I'm seeking and desiring that love. And then I get there and I'm surrounded by temptation. I'm surrounded by things reminding me that all that stuff I put in my uniform, all those achievements are not filling that gap.
Wow.
And the temptation coming in and beating me over the head with it, like eventually got to the point where it just broke me. In conjunction with all the things I'm using to fill that gap, to fight against the temptation, the alcohol, pornography, everything.
Yeah.
And now I'm just spiraling, man.
Yeah.
You know? And I know we've talked about it before, but it's just like me being in that mindset of like, man, I have everything and yet I have nothing, and I'm chasing and chasing, and I'm just digging that hole deeper, right?
All the achievements, everything on your chest, all the influence, yet it's still not enough. How did Jesus start to whisper and infiltrate the needs of your heart?
Yeah. Long journey. And when I was in Ukraine, it came to a point of me making a decision on the man I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And thank God for people in my life like my older brother that can speak that life into me and remind me that Jesus is in my corner. And it was in Ukraine where, you know, I was at my rock bottom. I was extremely negative to my wife. I was blaming everybody around me except for me in my relationship with my maker and with Jesus. And I just had a day where I was broken. I was pissed drunk and just destroyed in my hotel room in Ukraine. And I had a conversation with my brother, and it just kind of, and he probably doesn't remember saying it, but just, hey man, where are you at with Jesus right now? And
Is this your twin or your
my older brother?
Wow. So the older titan of the family.
Yep. And that started an encouragement in me, you know, deciding where I'm going to take this. And thank God that, you know, Jesus was there to walk with me through very hard decisions to eventually, you know, end up leaving the military. And that just continued to grow and grow and grow. And I think when I finally said, you know, early 30s, like, hey, I'm going to start living this for you, Jesus, like, starting to feel those gaps getting filled. Where now I'm not so much chasing that next thing, that next challenge, instead of refocusing on chasing him. And then fast forward that to this last year when I met you.
Yeah.
And I was at a kids camp up on the Yukon River in Alaska. And I just had a moment where I said, hey, Jesus, like, I felt myself trying to do everything my own again. Yeah. And kind of that slip backwards. And I finally said, like, Jesus, you know, I'm just giving it all to you again, man. Like, I want to live every day for you. And the next week I get a call from Ben Peterson. Say, hey, man, you want to go talk to soldiers and lead them to Christ? That would never have happened if I didn't answer that small whisper of Jesus when I was in Ukraine and start walking towards him. You know where I'd been? Probably dead. At least divorced. And definitely an alcoholic still.
Yeah.
There's a small whisper in me just opened my eyes back up to him to start leading me down the path to walk in the direction he wants me to walk in.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's filled those gaps. Not all the way, you know, still a walk. But the gaps are getting filled.
Yeah.
And not because of anything I did, not because of any achievement in the military, not because of any ruck march or any tab or anything, but because I finally said, Jesus, I can't do it alone, man. Like, I need you in my life.
Come on, dude. What characteristic about Jesus makes you go, that's why I follow him?
He's a man.
He's a man.
He is a man.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest challenge I see is, I want to be a man.
Yeah. What about him as a man speaks to the man in you and your soul?
I think the character and how he interacts with everybody else around him. He didn't need a Ranger tab to do it.
Yep.
He didn't need a long Special Forces tab to do it. He needed none of that. He was gentle but tough. He was understanding but had the authority of the world. And I feel like, especially, our culture, we think men have to have nice beards and hunters and all this stuff. And it's a constant reminder, like, nah, that's not hitting the character. Nothing on the outside is hitting the character of what God created us to be. And he gave us the perfect example, the perfect man to look up to and aspire to and to be.
Amen.
Yep.
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, let me pray for you. God, I just thank you for Craig. Thank you for the plans and purposes you have for his life. And God, I just pray for you to take every area of his life and let it all be yours. I thank you for his surrender and his continued surrender to you, Lord, for what you have for him. I thank you for his humility and his strength. And God, I pray that you would continue to use this man to change the world. Lord, we love you and thank you for this time in Jesus' name. Amen.
Stand in there.
Thanks,
brother.
Yeah.